Hello and welcome back to the channel. Okay, so in this video we're going to be looking into a potential solution to be able to monetize an open source or essentially free extension. So to begin with, I wanted to just highlight this discussion here on GitHub that I'm sure many of you have seen before, but it basically just highlights the amount and the different types of sometimes dubious monetization messages and requests that people get in for their extensions. Now I won't go through all of them here, but there's a lot. And a lot of these involve basically sharing and using user data in ways that they definitely shouldn't. The main reason for this video is to highlight this new library that's available called Mellowtel that lets you essentially monetize your extension. Now, this is completely open source and has an opt-in approach rather than these methods that we just saw there that first give away data that they shouldn't be, and the user has no idea what is actually happening. So this approach here is, like I say, it's completely open source. You have to make sure you can opt your users in. You have complete control over that, and it gives developers a way to actually monetize their extension that they wouldn't have had in the past. So in this video, we're going to go through the process of actually updating an existing extension I've got already that I built on my Browser Extension Academy. So if you're looking to get started in extension development, there's a link in the description on how to actually get started and build extensions. So for this video, we're going to jump over to the actual getting started guide, which is actually quite straightforward of what we need to do. One thing I want to mention is with permissions, which is a big part of extensions and how this framework, how this library works, is it does need some permissions. So if you have launched your extension on the web store already, you want to make sure to take a look at this, because some of these permissions you might not already have. So you might need to go through the optional approach here, which will be a lot easier for your existing users. Otherwise, you could fall into the trap of having your extension disabled for your existing users. So you want to be careful for that. And the other thing is that this is only for Chrome Web Store at the moment. So if your extension is on Firefox, you'll have to wait for now. So these are the two approaches. So for this example, my extension isn't published on the web store yet. So I'm going to go through option one. So let's jump into VS Code now and start updating our manifest file. Okay, so this is the manifest file I have so far. So as you can see, I do have some of these permissions, but right now for host permissions, we only have access to Twitter. So we're going to add in this extra one just here. And that's the only change we need to make for our host permissions, but then for our main permissions, we have storage and cookies. So we do need to add tabs and decorative net request up here. So that's all of the main permissions and host permissions that we need. We also need to make sure we have some type of content script. So in this extension, I do have an empty content script already, so I can take advantage of that. But if you don't have one, you'll need to make sure that you have this as well. And then again, you need to make sure that the host permissions here are set up accordingly. So if it's optional, we need to make sure we respect that as well. So in terms of my manifest, we're all looking in a good position here. So now let's go ahead and actually install the library. Otherwise that could be a problem. So let's go to our terminal. I think I'm using Yarn as the package manager here. So we're going to add that. Okay, so we should be almost ready to go here. So we have our manifest set up and this is all done. So one thing that this library also includes is some helpful, like text you can use in your web store justification. So when you add these permissions, these are quite strong ones. So this gives you some example text that you can use. Now, one thing I want to mention here is make sure that you read this through, because if you already have different sort of functionality within your extension, you want to make sure that this includes that as well. So just be sure to read these when you're adding this into the web store, and then everything should be okay. So yeah, to make sure you explain exactly what these permissions are used for. Okay, so now we can go into our service worker and actually start to configure this. So in the dashboard, you'll be given an API key. So this is what we'll need for our setup. And what you can actually see here is when I went through testing earlier, I actually already have some earnings here. So that was just from a small test run earlier. What we need to do next is, like we say, we're going to add this into our service work. So we're going to import the library just here. I've added the token into my env file, but if you wanted to, you could just add it directly in here. So there is that token, and then all we need to do is add this down here. So we'll just create a new function. And then, where is it? Init background. Okay, but let's just make sure that we pass in that token. And then what I'm doing, I'm just going to console log this so we can see what's happening. Okay, so we're going to save that. Let's get our dev server running. Okay, so if we go and refresh the extension now, let's see what we have. Okay, so we can see here our extension is set up here. Unrelated error, but let's just fix that. Now we have this set up, we can move on to the next stage here. So if we come back, we can see that we have our background set up. Now we can get the user opt-in status. So this is something we need to control within your specific extension. So depending on whereabouts in the flow of your extension, it makes sense to request this from the user. You would need to add that. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to automatically opt the user in. But that's definitely something you'd want to adjust based on your extension. So we're just going to go down now and add these like that. But like I say, this should be set from the user. Okay, so that's everything we need for our service worker. And if we want to opt the user out, there's another command just here. So now we need to go across to our content script. So it's a similar approach. So why don't we just actually copy all of this? There'll be some parts that are different. For example, we don't need the background. We don't need either of these. And then we just need to init our content script. So get rid of this. Okay, so what we should see now, because we've already opted the user in automatically, when we come back, so if we refresh this, everything's set up. You can see there are more options here that you can add. So if we come back into here and let's inspect this page, you can see our content script is just here, but it looks like I'm missing something. I didn't import it. So we'll come back up here. We'll import. Now we'll refresh our page and we should see, yeah, so here we are, we're set up. So if we now go back into the dashboard, you can see that we have one active node. So this means that this user is connected and the extension is working. But as your users grow and more users are using this, this number would increase. And then over time, you'll start to see this requests number increase as well through the different nodes. So like I said, it's completely open source. So if you want to look into more of what is actually happening here, you can see all of the information in this library. But I think this is a very interesting approach compared to some of the more just dubious and dark methods that the users don't really see. This can be completely controlled and an opt-in approach. So if you have, say, an open source extension that you want to give for free, you can give users the option to opt into this to help support the extension. So I think it's a really interesting way to change that approach a little bit and put it more on the users to be able to help you without necessarily having to pay to use the extension. I'll put a link to this in the description as well, and to the actual dashboard so you can take a look. But if you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'm going to reach out to the founder of this library, so hopefully they can reply to the questions there. And they provide a Discord server as well, so I'll put a link to that in the description if you want to find out more. But yeah, it definitely seems like an interesting approach to be able to monetize extensions. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.